Morning, everyone, especially to the dear graduates, dear teachers, and the parents today. Today, this is the special day for us to congratulate the dear completers of school year 2021 and 2022. Education is the process of facilitating learning or acquisitions of knowledge, skills, values, morals, beliefs, habit, and personal development. The study explored the challenges and issues in teaching and learning continuity of public higher educations in the Philippines as the result of COVID-19 pandemic. It was found out during school lockdowns, the teachers made adjustments in teaching and learning designs guided by policies implemented by institution. Most of the students had difficulty complying with the learning activities and requirements due to the limited or no internet connectivity. Identified from qualitative responses to include the trajectory of flexible learning delivery, the role of technology, the teaching and learning environment, and the prioritizations of safety and security. Scenario analysis provides the contextual basics for strategic actions amid and beyond the pandemic. To ensure teaching and learning continuity, it is a conclude that higher education's institutions have to migrate to flexible teaching and learning modality, recalibrate the curriculum, capacitate the faculty, upgrade the infrastructure, implement as a strategic plan, and assess all aspects of the plan. The COVID-19 pandemic has created unprecedented challenges economically, socially, and politically across the globe. More than just a health crisis, it is resulted in educational crisis during lockdowns and quarantines. Most of the students' population was affected. The learners were out of school and related educational institutions. The suddenness, uncertainty, and volatility of COVID-19 left from educational systems in rush of addressing and changing learning landscape. The disruptions of COVID-19 in the educational systems is of great magnitude that universities have to cope with the soonest possible time. The goal is for higher education institutions to develop a resilient learning system using evidence-based and needs-based information so that responsive and proactive measures can be instituted coping with the effects of COVID-19 in higher educations. Institutions demands a variety of perspective among stakeholders. Consultation needs to include the administrations who supports the teachings, learning processes, the students who are the core of the systems, the faculty members, or the teachers who perform the academic roles, parents, guardians who share the responsibility of learning continuity, the community, and the external partners who contribute to the completions of educational requirements of the students. These complicated identities show that institutions of higher learnings has a large number of stakeholders in the context of the pandemic. Universities have to start understanding and identifying long-term implications of this phenomenon on teaching, learning, students experience, infrastructures, operations, and staff. Understandings of the context of each universities are necessary to current challenges. They are confronted with universities have to be resilient in times of crisis. Resiliency is in educational system is the ability to overcome challenges of all kinds like trauma, tragedy, crisis, and bounce back stronger, wiser, and more personality powerful. The educational system must prepare to develop plans to move forward and address the new normal after the crisis to be resilient. Higher educations needs to address teaching and learning continuity amid and beyond the pandemic. The teaching and learning processes assumes a different shapes in times of crisis. When disasters and crises, man-made and natural, occur, schools and colleges need to be resilient and find new way to continue the teaching learning activities. One emerging reality as a result of World Health crisis is the migrations to online learning modalities. To mitigate the risk of face-to-face interactions, universities are forced to migrate from face-to-face delivery to online modality as a result of pandemic in the Philippines. Most of the universities, including HGB College, have resorted to online learning during school lockdowns. However, this sudden shift has resulted in problems, especially for the learners without access to the technology. When online learning modality is used as a result of the pandemic, the gap between those who have connectivity and those without widen. The continuing academic engagement has been a challenge for teachers and students due to the access and internet connectivity. Considering limitations on connectivity, the concept of flexible learning emerged as an option for online learning, especially in higher institutions in the Philippines. Flexible learning focuses on giving students choice in the pace, place, and mode of students' learning, which can be promoted through appropriate pedagogical practices. The learners are provided with the options on how or he or she will continue with his or her studies, where, when she can proceed, and in what ways can learners comply with the requirements and show evidences of learning outcomes. Flexible learning and teaching span a multiple of approaches that can meet the varied needs of diverse learners. This includes independence in terms of time and locations of learning and the availability of some degree of choice in curriculum, including the content, learning strategies, and assessment, and the use of contemporary informations and communication technologies to support a range of learning strategies. One key component in migrating to flexible modality is to consider how flexibility is integrated into the key dimensions of teaching. One major considerations in leveraging flexibility in the curriculum encompasses the recommended written task or implemented assess and learn curriculum. Curriculum pertains to programs, the teaching and learning designs, learning resources as assessments, and teaching and learning environment. Adjustment on the types of assess measures is one major amid the pandemic. There is a need to limit requirements to focus on the major essentials projects that measures that enduring learning outcomes like case scenarios, problem-based activities, and capstone project. Authentic assessments have to be intensified to ensure that competencies are equal by the learners. In the process of modifying the curriculum amid the pandemic, it must be recommended that initiatives and evaluation tasks must be anchored on what the learners need, including their safety, well-being. Curriculum recalibration is not just about the content of what is to be learned and taught, but how it's to be learned, assessed in the context of the challenges brought about the pandemic. A flexible curriculum design should be learner-centered, take into account and demographic profile of circumstances of learners such access to technology, technological literacies, different learning styles and capabilities, the different knowledge backgrounds and experience, and ensure varied and flexible forms of assessment. The challenges during the pandemic is how to create balance between relevant basic competencies for the students to acquire a teacher's desire to achieve the intended outcomes of the curriculum. So, the learners is engagement in teaching learning process needs to be taken into considerations in the context of flexibility. This is about the design and development of productive learning experience so that each learner is exposed to the most learning opportunities. So, considering the face-to-face modality is not feasible during the pandemic. Teachers may consider flexible distant learning options like correspondence teaching, module-based learning, project-based, and television broadcasts for learners with internet connectivity. Computer-assisted instructions, synchronous online learning, asynchronous online learning, collaborative e-learning may be considered. The role of the technology in the learning continuity. Technology has provides innovative and resilience solutions in times of crisis to combat disruptions and helps people to communicate and even work virtually without the need for face-to-face interactions. This leads to the many system changes in organization as they adopt new technology for interacting and working. However, technological challenges like internet connectivity, especially for places without signal, can be greatest obstacles in teachings and earning continuity, especially for academic institutions who have opted for online learning as the teaching modality. The alternative models of learning during the pandemic should be supported by a well-designed technical and logistical implementation plan. So, the nationwide closures of educational institutions in an attempt to contain the spreads of the virus has impacted of the world's students' populations. It is the intent of his study to look into the challenges in teaching and learning continuity amidst the pandemic. The needs to mitigate the immediate impact of school closures on the continuity of learning among learners from their perspective is an important considerations. Moreover, the teachers' perspectives are equally as important as the learners since they are one providing and sustaining the learning process. So, teachers should be effectively approach those current challenges to facilitate learning among learners in different and learner-centeredness, and be ready to assume the role of facilitators on the remote learning platforms as the educational disparities, other social economic disparities, and as structural inequalities are compounded, the gaps between the haves and we have nots will grow considerably. That the children of poor should have severely more limited opportunities to learn during the pandemic than their non-poor counterparts, and their lives should be significantly more disrupted by the pandemic, is of course antithetical to the basic tenets of democracy. So, as the idea, this is what happening takes holds, this will undermine confidence in democracy and its institutions, already weak in many countries and in decline. This is a grim picture of how the COVID-19 pandemic will shape the education's landscape and the future for the next decades to come. As with the health impacts of the pandemic, the educational impact will be mediated by how humans respond by the actions or omissions of students, parents, teachers, and school and system level leaders in anticipations and during the pandemic. Some responses are more likely to mitigate the educational impact, other responses with argument and negative impact of the pandemic. The worst response from educators would be ignore the education significance of the picture projects to pretend that this is not the educational issues that it be short-lived, or that consequences on the educations will be minimal. This response is the one most likely to cause severe disruptions to educations for most children and the greatest disparities in education's opportunity. Whenever the coronavirus, commonly known as COVID-19, has stunned the world with its rapid expansions and detrimental effects to the humans in a span of just 2 months, the whole world stopped moving and rested for a seconds. Our economy declined millions of peoples when jobless numerous forms of transportations ceased to function, our educations froze, and millions of people all around the world were infected with the disease. Yes, this is just mind-boggling to the think about, but believe me, this will shape our future. I assume that everyone who's watching this sitting inside their houses, just scrolling through social media platforms. This pandemic has affected us in a way that we became idle mentally and physically. It has been months since I last played basketball with my friends. It's been months since I last paid a visit to the malls. And it's been months since I last talked to the people in persons. These are the negative effects that the pandemic has brought to us, and it is just sad to think about. But we can use this to achieve new things in our lives. We can use time to become closer to our families. This is time that we cherish our moment with them and thank them for not giving up on us. This is the time to celebrate, for God has protected us in these months of horror. This is a time to practice our strength, courage, and responsibilities as a students and as a person or as the parents. This is a time and our change to become a better and give out our best. We must strengthen ourselves and believe that we can and we will get through this. Social distancing has been proven effective in the mitigating the spread of the disease, and it has been challenging to us since we are basically social animals. But even though we are apart, we can always unite to rise and to support our frontliners in battling through this pandemic. We must be responsible with our actions and be respectful to the given protocols. Doctors, nurses, and health workers stay in hospital just because for us to save at home. They give their lives to save the lives of their fellow countrymen. We must unite and do our part to ease our way to a brighter future. Let us not be uncoordinated and must always be mindful with our own actions. We save lives by staying at home. We save lives by following the protocols, and we save lives by being responsible for this who we are. We protect our families, we protect our loved ones, we protect our fellow countrymen, and we protect our future. In this time of this unfortunate event, we must not be idle about current intellectual status. Yes, it is hard to cope with the equipment used in the learning, but it is harder to regain our intellectual status once it becomes idle. The experience that we are about to gain from these new approaches can be beneficial for all of us because this gives us the opportunity to become intellectually active again and can improve our current mental states. Truly, our brain is one of who keeps us all and sane the functional. It is suggested that we continue to widen our knowledge and continue to learning to exercise our brain amid this pandemic. I believe every child has their own potential, so get up now and start uncovering skills, for this is time to show who we really are. This is our time, will not hinder our future. This virus will not stop us in becoming the person who we want to be. Let us prove that we can, and we can live, get through this. Let us all stand six apart and bring the best in ourselves, for this is for us. This is for countrymen and this is for our future. So students, pursue our dreams even when have challenges in life. Just keep ourselves and be patient. Thank you for listening.